What's good, Illini Nation? It's your man Deon, your man in the middle, Deon Thomas, and as of course, bringing you nothing but the best. But before we get going, I got to send a shout out to my sponsors, Bet Rivers Sportsbook, and say thank you. Thank you for the continued support, which allows me to bring this, what I would consider spectacular programming to Illini Nation and ears across the country. But today we're here to talk about something a little bit different. It's not necessarily Illini basketball, but in a way it is. We're here to talk a little bit about the TBT, the basketball tournament, how it started, how it got going, and how it ended up in Central Illinois. And the way we're doing that tonight is we got my man on here, Mike LaTulip. Everybody remembers Mike, one of the best jump shots that we had at the University of Illinois. And then he took his talents like LeBron James, not just to South Beach, he went the right state, but he's still an Illini at heart. Mikey, what's up, baby? Thanks for joining me.
Deon, man, I appreciate you having me on. That was a heck of an intro.
Well, I'm getting better and better at it. It's called practice, man. And when I'm
Killed
talking
it, man. You're
about,
killing it, man. It's
and when
great.
I'm talking about somebody like you, it's easy. It's easy. It's easy to throw good things out there when you're talking about good people. So I really appreciate you joining us. But tonight, today, let's talk about this because now it's summer basketball. Of course, Illini Nation is very excited about all that's going on with its college team, with the transition of coaches, the bringing in of new coaches, all of the players. But this is something that's a little different. I'm going to give you the floor right now. Tell Illini Nation, because there'll be some that know, but
Mhm.
then there's some that do not know. What is the TBT, the basketball tournament?
So the basketball tournament, it's a high stakes, winner take all summer tournament. Some teams are comprised of, alumni from a certain school. Some teams are comprised of random guys in a sense. There's a multitude of those kinds of different teams. And what this tournament has really turned into, it started back in 2014. And, it's guys that are coming together during these summer periods, during kind of the dog days of the summer, and are able to get together, play together, and play together for something. Especially you play in college, you're playing, you're representing your school, but at the same time, you can't profit off any of that. And I know that's changing this year. But this is a tournament where these guys, whether you're professional, whether you're just coming out of college, you can play for your alumni team, or you can go play for another team. But the whole point is to play high level basketball in the summer, and that's exactly what this tournament offers.
One of the great things about an Illini Nation, this is going to make your head flip because the first year it happened, of course, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it because I didn't have a stake in it. But it's a high stakes, as Mike said, winner take all. That all is a purse of $1 million. Yes, that's million with an M. Why couldn't they have this when I was playing?
Right.
So you talked about the makeup of the teams. So the makeup of these teams is normally guys, as you mentioned, that have played or played overseas or played in the NBA, and now they're guys that are coming back and getting together, or just regular guys that play some level of college basketball. How did you get involved with this? I guess that would be a great start. Let's start with Michael LaTulip and how he came to the TBT.
Yeah, well, anyone that knows me knows I'm a basketball junkie. I live it, I breathe it. Just at my wedding a couple weeks ago, my brother, during his best man speech, brought up the NBA encyclopedia. I used to have it when I was younger. I used to read it. It was my Bible, so to speak. And I just love this game. I live it, I breathe it, and the inception of the team itself. At first I had just been watching the tournament, and I think year after year was sitting there saying, "Man, why do we not have an Illinois team in this?" There are plenty of overseas talent. Myers has gone on to the NBA. Obviously Darren played. There are a lot of guys that have played in the NBA, but also there's a ton of international talent. And when I say international, I mean these guys that are going over and playing in Italy and Japan, in Germany and Estonia. So how can we put together a team that has that alumni feel to it, and go after this whole thing and win it. And I think, I was approached. So Michael Finke, who obviously played at Illinois, he played in the TBT, and I believe it was the 2019 TBT,
Mhm.
and he was approached by the TBT and said, "Hey, would there be the possibility to put together an Illinois team? Like, there's a lot of talent, like I said." And they basically said, who could do that? Who could kind of pull that off, and who has the bandwidth to do it? Uh, and he was like, "I think I know a guy." So Finky had reached out to me, and this is something that, like I said, had been in my mind for years. So it
Right.
wasn't like it was a foreign concept. And he had asked me, and I kind of put out some feelers, because the whole point is, cool, I can take the reins, I can put together the team, but if there aren't players, there's no team.
True.
And you start the process of kind of putting out these feelers and saying, hey, if we were to have a team, would you play? Would you entertain playing? Like, is this something that you would be interested in? And by and large, a lot of the people that and players that I talked to said, "Hey, tell me where to be, tell me when to be there. Like, I'll play." And that's kind of how it all started. This was back in September of 2019. So go from September 2019 to July 2020 when we played in the tournament. I mean, it was 10 months, a legitimate 10 months of preparation, of putting together the roster, logistics. I mean, I always like to say it's almost like being a GM, head coach, assistant coach, Dobo, kind of all wrapped into one, because you're taking care of all that. And in order to have a great team, you can't skip any parts of that process. You just can't.
Right.
And I think that's what I learned going through my first year. But that's really how it all started. And then once you talk to the TBT and they lay it out for you and say, hey, this is what we want, this is what we want to see. Now they turn you loose, and you gotta find a way to recruit. You find a way to make sure that, whether it's funding or whether it's, making sure that these guys are taken care of, and making sure that it's an experience that they want to come back to year after year. And that's really what has been the focus. So that's really how it all started. And now, and since then, it's certainly taken off, to no surprise, how passionate this fan base is. So uh, that was the inception of it.
Let me tell you guys a little bit about our partners over at Bet Rivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up yet with Bet Rivers, now's the time. Bet Rivers Sportsbook is offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart is that they require just one playthrough to turn your bonus into cash money. When you win at Bet Rivers Sportsbook, they pay fast. And now it's even faster. With Rush Pay, instant approval for withdrawals. It's safe, it's secure, it's reliable. With March Madness right around the corner, there's never been a better time to give Bet Rivers Sportsbook a try. Go to betrivers.com today or download Bet Rivers iOS app. Must be 21 years or older. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Well, they chose the right person to wear as many hats as they do, man, because for what I've known, this has been you your entire life. You've always worn hats, you've always done things the right way. So you're acting as GM, as you said, Dobo, and of course the head coach. The job of a GM is putting this team together. And you've done a great job. First time I watched it, of course, was the last team when you guys played. What went into reaching out to those guys? Because you don't want to just bring in players. You guys and were very successful in your first year. So what was your thought process outside of, let me ask a bunch of guys if they want to play, to put together the team you did? Because you guys as a team was lights out. And then you had one of my favorite players, man. Of course, Andre Felipe is one of my, you know, I talked when I was at the college level in recruiting. I became not real good friends, but good friends, pretty good friends with his coach when he was at JUCO, and so I called him when Andres came to Illinois, and he told me immediately. He was like, Deon, you're gonna love him. He was like, that's all I got to tell you. He's like, I'm not gonna tell you anything else, but you're going to love him, and I love him. I love everything he's about. I love his dedication. I love his toughness. Of course, his ability to play. And he being one of our newer kids that are just graduated. Illini Nation will, of course, remember him. But tell a little bit, one, about how your thought process in putting that first team together. And for those that don't know, just some of the guys that you had on that first roster.
Yeah. So year one, just like anything that you're trying to get off the ground, right?
And I'm sorry, let me cut you off. First of all, let's go back in another step. I love the name. How did you come up with the name? And then we could get into the players and all that other stuff.
That's a great question. I'm even trying to think myself how we came up with the name. May have just been flowing around in some group chats, and I think someone had mentioned House of Pain, but there were a lot of different ones I think people were tinkering with. I think some people wanted some element of the Chief in there. I think
I'm not surprised at that.
we stayed away from that just given the situation. But
that's a hot button. That's a hot button topic, bud. Great job, Stan. Great job.
Yeah, appreciate it. So when we all started it, and we kind of got, obviously, the name, it flows. It's not a mouthful, and it's obviously something that you go to any Illinois basketball game, and on the intro screen, I don't know if they still do it, but at the end of it, they always yell the House of Pain. So and it's one of those things where it's kind of a play on words, and so we love that. And that was kind of the start, because right when you're putting together a team, you go, okay, what are we gonna call this team, right? Like, and is it gonna catch on, and are people gonna be excited about it? So that was cool. But then when you go into putting the team together, recruiting is, and I think anyone that's coached at the college level, high school level, whatever, NBA, one of the biggest things in recruiting is being able to point back to results. This is what we've done. This is, these are the NBA players we've produced. These are, or if you're at a high school, hey, these are the college players that we've produced, and this is what they're doing. The struggle in year one recruiting for the TBT was I didn't have any results to point to. It was year one. Like, I couldn't say, hey, we made it to the semifinals last year. Come join us. Like, we have a chance here to win, an extra game or two, and win the $1 million. So it was really just being able to pitch these guys on what the team was going to look like, what the pieces were going to be, what kind of the mission was. And then schematically, from an offensive and defensive standpoint, are we going to have pieces that complement each other? And what does that look like? And what will we run? And how will we defend? And all of that, everything that goes into those recruiting pitches, I take that serious. Like, I take that extremely seriously. It's no matter who I'm talking to, no matter who we're reaching out to, I will put together a comprehensive, here's our offensive scheme, here's our defensive scheme, and here's how we will utilize you. And here's how, you fit into this team. Here's kind of how we want to basically optimize your talents. And being real with these guys on the front end, just like any other team, of expectations. Here's probably how much you're going to play. And those are tough conversations at times. And you got to factor in, these are conversations with some of the guys that were my teammates.
Right.
They were teammates with me. And now I'm sitting here telling them how much they may play, how much they may not play. And that all ties back into, you have to have good guys.
Yes.
You have to have good guys that understand that it's about the collective, right? That understand that, hey, I may not get all the minutes that I think I'm going to get, but if we win this whole thing, I'm as big a part of that as anybody else's. And I think back to last year, the team that won it, Marquette, the Golden Eagles, they had a player on their team by the name of Andrew Rousey. Andrew Rousey last season put up about 19, 20 points a game in the G League. Great player. He's like a 6'2" guard, can really score it. He did not play for that team.
Wow.
Like, he was on the team. Dwight Bikes, there's a lot, Darius Johnson Odom. You go down the list, there's a lot of talent on that team. Andrew Rozzi did not play. But you know who the first one to embrace everybody when the clock struck 0 and they won it, was Andrew Rozzi. And I always think back to that, because he could have had every reason to say, forget this, man. I'm 20 a game in the G League, and how am I not playing in this tournament? And just become a distraction. But when you have good guys on the team, when you have guys that understand their role and really, really want to buy in, that was the difference last year, I thought, for our team. Yes, we tried to put everyone in position to be successful. Yes, we wanted to make sure there was each guy was playing a role that they were comfortable in, but also, like, all these dudes they bought in. Like, they listened when we put together a game plan, or, hey, this is how we wanted to guard ball screens for this particular guy. It was boom, boom, boom. And that was the difference for me last year, just being around these pros. And the difference between, when you're in college, there's that one freshman that's busting the plays. Yeah. Now we got to run it again. But for some of these guys overseas, you bust a play in practice, you get cut, you get sent home. So it's crazy. And the
busting a flight home afterwards.
Yeah, you'll be back in Chicago in no time. And that was when it really dawned on me, like, the organization aspect of it. We got on Zoom calls before, we're talking to guys, and making sure that we prepared as much as possible, so that when we played on July 4th, that it wasn't just like, all right, let's roll the ball out, see what happens. So when we took that next step to getting there, and we started implementing plays and implementing sets, I mean, I had probably 10 to 12 sets that we wanted to run, which, in a 3 to 4 day span, to implement those sets, to get those to a point of muscle memory, it's all tough. And I will say, before I even continue, that this wasn't just the Mike LaTulip show. Like, it took a village. I mean, I'm not in the coaching profession. So the people that I know that are in the coaching profession, college coaching, like, I wanted to use them as a resource. And whether that was James Herring, who was my GA at Illinois, who's now an assistant coach at Radford, was a Dobo at Dayton, Jamal Walker, who was an assistant at Illinois, a lot of coaches that I knew from Wright State, just anybody that was kind of in that coaching tree, and anyone that I could pick their brain and say, hey, what do you think of this? This is like, it took a village, really. And when we got to implementing these set plays at training camp, the light bulb moment for me was when I drew up the first play, relatively intricate play. It wasn't just like, hey, high ball screen and play. It was a pretty intricate play. And those dudes, first time, got it. Went out there, got it. Next guys are rotating in different positions. And we didn't have to run it multiple times, like if a guy forgot it. And that's when I was like, okay, the learning curve here is good. Like, I can implement things and don't have to worry about guys not picking up on it or being behind. And that's really what allowed us to speed up that process, to where not only are we implementing plays, but after game one, we're throwing in wrinkles to those plays. Like, boom, this is, they're guarding Mike Dom a certain way, they're guarding Malcolm a certain way. So once they sit on this screen, we're going to have him ripping off on the other side. And that's kind of how we went about it. But that's my long-winded way of going into, like, when you prepare for it, when you're recruiting for it, when you're putting the team together, is, they have to trust me first, and kind of what the vision is, what that looks like. And all of that, like, the foundation of all that trust is from organization. Like, if you can show that you're organized, that you're serious about it, and that's really the steps that we wanted to take. Because if you're just kind of like, hey man, come play with us, we'll hoop. Hey, you got anybody else that wants to join the team? Cool. All right, cool. We'll put it together and we'll all roll the ball out in Columbus. Like, I want it to be worth these guys' time. Like, they already just spent 10 months overseas. So if they're taking time out of their summer to come play with us, I don't take that lightly. I want it to be worth their time. So that's my long-winded way of going about how we put together a team. And at least this year in year two, like, we have results to point to. So when
Right.
we're recruiting, and there was a long list of guys, Illinois guys and non-Illinois guys that, or really a lot of non-Illinois guys that want to play for the House of Pain because
Right.
they saw year one and they think that we have a chance to win the entire thing. And I think anybody who wants to get their hands on $1 million is lining up. So there's been a lot more conversations this year that are kind of, hey, you know, almost keeping people away and keeping this circle kind of tight, to where we don't let loose and just say, hey, yeah, anybody can come join, because that's where you kind of lose the foundation of what you have. And I think what we have is great guys who buy in, who understand their role, and that want to be together and play and do great things here in these dog days of the summer.
Well, you nailed it right on the head. And I think a very important piece to that is guys understanding that working together is more important than working as individuals. So at Illinois, there's one thing I find, and I'm sure you'll concur with that as a former player. We have a sense of pride and brothership that I believe other universities have, but I just don't know if it's on the same par as ours. I mean, I could be walking down the street now, and I was on Marcus Liberty's podcast earlier today, All Ball Chicago, and it's like that's my big brother, or my teammates are like my real brothers. We have a real connection to basically everyone that's played. So last season, you go in, you bring in, so your core guys were Illinois guys. But let's start off, and we're going to touch on the dominator, because I had an opportunity, and I'm going to be honest with you, man. I didn't know who Mike Dom was. I know who Mike Dom is now.
I think a lot of people do now. Yep.
The big fella went to work, man. I was blown away. One, how did you get him to come on board? And I saw that he's on board for this year as well. Start off, talk a little bit about him, how that connection came together, and then of course, you had Malcolm, you had other Illinois guys, and how that how that came into getting those guys to play for you as well.
Yeah, the first thing with Mike Dom is if you go and look at the NCAA record books for all-time points in a career, you'll see Pete Maravich number one, and then you go 6 spots down and you'll find Mike Dom. I mean, he's 7th all-time in the NCAA in scoring. I mean, that right there just speaks volumes, one. But two, he's a guy that, and I'll get into the backstory of how we got into it, but he's a guy that I was so happy that he's joining us for the second year, because in the first year, he just exudes positivity. Like, that's who he is. He's a fantastic guy, and any time that you can. So when he came from South Dakota State, any time that you can get a guy who just, any room that he's in, doesn't matter if he's known you for 5 minutes or 5 years. He's wrapping you up. He's embracing you. Like he's just that type of guy. And I think you can't have enough guys like that on a team. And how it all started for Mike and I, when I was in high school, my first offer, my sophomore year, or maybe my junior year, was South Dakota State. Coach Nagy at South Dakota State, obviously Dick Nagy, assistant coach at Illinois, so Scott Nagy,
my position coach.
Yeah. So Scott had offered me out of high school. So when I went to Illinois, I decided I was going to play a 5th year, and South Dakota State was one of those schools who had familiarity with me, and we went back through the recruiting process again. I actually, and I don't know how many people know this, my senior year of college at Illinois, so my 4th year, I redshirted to preserve that 5th year of eligibility. And John Gross was nice enough to allow me to go on college visits during the fall of my senior year at Illinois.
Wow.
I missed the first practice of the 2015-2016 season to go to South Dakota State to watch their first practice. As crazy as that sounds, like I was redshirting. Gross obviously trusted me, and he said, hey, it's a great opportunity. You should go out there. So I flew out to Brookings, South Dakota. And on that visit, the guy who was showing me around was redshirt freshman Mike Dom. So that's where the familiarity started. I obviously didn't end up going to South Dakota State, but when Scott Nagy got the job at Wright State, that's where I ended up going. But Mike and I had kept in touch. He's a guy that, over the years that, you're just checking in on. I'm congratulating him on his successes, obviously making his way up the leaderboard in the NCAA for points and cracking the top 10 and, going to play for the Blazers in summer league, signing in the ACB, so we're keeping in contact. So he actually was committed to another team in the TBT, but when the field shrank to 24, he ended up kind of being a free agent again. So as you can imagine, these teams were coming in droves to snag Mike Dom. So I wanted to make sure, I hit him up and said, hey, if anything happens, we want to have you. And he was in the Denver airport, and he and I talked on the phone for about 45 minutes. Went through the whole pitch. Hey, here's how we're gonna utilize you. I sent him over the PDF that I send over a lot of these guys, so that he saw it, so that he had it in front of him. Went through exactly who we had on the team, what each guy was bringing to the table, how he fits into that. What we want to do offensively, defensively, and then by the end of it, I think he was pretty excited because I think he saw that it was an opportunity for him to, go into a situation where he felt was structured in a way that could help him, but also with a team that has great guys that could give him a chance to win the tournament. Because that's part of it. Obviously we want to all get together in the summer, but we want to win the tournament. And we're the 16 seed out of 24, and our second round draw is Carmen's crew, the number one team, the number one seed, the reigning champs, and he just took that all head on. He's like, absolutely, let's do it. Like, let's knock them off in the second round, and obviously single elimination. You're like, all right, let's get to the second round, and then let's take care of that. But Mike was just so great throughout that process, and he was a guy that, once he saw a lot, he really feels like he went to Illinois. It's crazy. Like the amount of Illinois fans that have bought into the Dominator and really wanted to see him return to this team this year. That's something that I think held a lot of weight with Mike. And it's another reason why he again in year two had a lot of teams that were vying for his services, and he wanted to come back and wear the orange and blue. So it's crazy where even the non-Illini guys just are dying to wear the orange and blue again.
There you go. So you got Mike Dom, had some history there, him as your host on your recruiting trip, and of course the relationship with Coach Nagy. I say this, a lot of people that don't know, I know things didn't work out for John Gross at Illinois. John Gross is one of the best people I've ever met in my life. I mean, for him to allow you to go on a trip, although you're on scholarship at Illinois, just tells you a lot about who he is as a person and how he sees and how he wants to help people achieve their higher self. To this day, Coach and I text one another every once in a while just to make sure everybody's good. And so I'm not surprised, but I'm sure Illini Nation will be surprised when they hear that, at least for those people that don't really know him. But I'm glad he did it because it just shows who he is. So you got Mike Dom from that tree. And then, of course, your Illini family. Who's the first guy you reached out to? Well, you know what? Never mind. Doesn't matter who's the first guy you reached out. What was your thought process when you started bringing in the Illinois guys? Because like you said, you got to bring in the right guys. You can't just bring in all Illinois guys. So
Right.
what was the thought process? And then how did some of those conversations go?
Yeah. Like I said, I had put out the feelers initially. Honestly, it's crazy. I think back. So during the 2019 TBT, before I even knew that I was putting together a team, I had reached out to a lot of guys just to see if they would play. And then 2 months later, I'm getting asked to put together a team. And I'm like, man, I've already kind of had these conversations. So, you go in and you try to figure out who would want to do it, who's serious about it. And then there's that balance of, do the pieces make sense? And now you're playing the game of, okay, there's going to be some tough conversations because you can only have so many guys on the team, and there's plenty of Illinois players that that are playing overseas that,
Yeah, because I
had
didn't
great.
get my phone call. I won't hold that against you, but all-time leading scorer. I don't get my phone call. No, I'm just
Hey, I mean
you
that. Hey, that's
didn't want
you're
me
right.
running up and down the court anyway, Mike.
Complete oversight on my end. But yeah, man, it's really when you break it down, it's okay. We want to get Illinois guys. We want we want these guys to still be a great fit for the team. And two, I want to make sure that I'm putting these guys in a good situation, right? Because if it's a guy that's just coming out of college, like I want to make sure that it's the right situation for them. Like, hey, whether it's their stock overseas or so I want to make sure that if they're on the team that we're playing them and putting them in a situation that in a position to be successful. And but there's so many other factors that go into it. When you talk about a guy like Malcolm Hill, for example, because I think what everybody thinks is, you know, I simply text someone, ask them if they want to play, and they say yes, and then we go and play. And that's not the case. I mean, a lot of it is okay. Some guys take a little more convincing than others, and then there's other factors of, hey, it's in my contract that I can't play for another team in the summer, or hey, NBA summer league's coming up, and my agent wants me to play in that. I mean, you name it. I mean, there's so many factors, or maybe guys just want to have their summer to themselves, or maybe they want to avoid injury, whatever it may be. Those are all, things that you have to deal with from a recruiting standpoint. And then you start playing the game of, okay, well, how long do I wait for this guy's answer? And if they say no at the 23rd hour, 24th hour, then where am I at with the rest of the roster? So it's this proactive balance of, I got plan A, plan B, plan C. And if this happens, then okay, I need to make sure that we got these guys and that these guys are in the right space, but all the while trying to keep that, the pillar that we have of cohesity
Mhm.
and cohesion, and making sure that, okay, these are still parts that make sense, and it's not just grab that guy, grab that guy, grab that guy. So those are the really difficult parts of it. But with a guy like Malcolm last year, um, anyone that knows Malcolm Hill, like he's a beat of his own drum kind of guy, and I love him to death. And he was somebody that when he gave us his commitment, it means a lot. Like he didn't have to do that. And for a lot of these guys, Andres Felice just finished his season last year, like just wrapped up, and it was a clean sever last year when his season was over. It was just COVID and ball stopped bouncing. So I didn't know whether he would want to play, whether he would just say, hey, no, I'm just going to wait for my first professional contract. Like I didn't know, but getting to know Dre more and more, he is the quintessential anytime, any place kind of guy. Like once him and I got on the phone and talked through some things, and he was like, tell me where, tell me when, like let's play. And like LaRon Black's the same way. And you could tell him that the tournament's on the moon. LaRon Black will be there. He'll find the nearest space shuttle to get him up there. Like that's just the way that he is. And but same thing with a lot of these guys. Like for our roster this year in particular, like you look at a guy like Nana Egwu, like he's a guy where you could literally send a text and say, tournament date, are you in? And I know what the response is going to be. That's just who he is. But for a lot of these guys, it's just being mindful of, okay, I want to make sure that even just during a pandemic, right? Like they're coming back from 10 months overseas. I'm not going to take it personally if you want to take that time for yourself this summer. You have every right to do that. So, and it's just an ongoing process. I mean, our roster last year before the tournament started, it wasn't solidified till 48 hours before the tournament. Like, and it was a 10-month process of trying to, get a feel for guys if they're going to play. And then finally, by the time, Matt Mooney was another guy who, had a stint in the NBA, played for Texas Tech. He's a Chicagoland area guy. And the Cavaliers pulled him out like 48 hours before we were supposed to go to Columbus. Ravonte Rice's league in Israel starts back up. They resumed play, so he couldn't play in the tournament. Like all these things were happening So as those happen, it's okay if we do have drop off, how are we going to supplement that? Who are we going to bring in, and does it all still make sense? So the recruiting aspect of it is arduous. It's a hefty task, but it's fun. Like all the stresses that go into it. Like I love it. Like if you had told me that in any capacity, I would have been putting a team together. Like that's all I've ever wanted. So it's nice to be able to do that, but also use these other coaches in the industry as as soundboards, and not just sit here and think that I got it all figured out.
Right. Before I move on to the next question, I want to say again to my sponsors, Bet Rivers Sportsbook, thank you for being a part of this, and thank you for being my partner. They have made this and many others guests really happy, and allowed me to be able to put this platform out there to be able to showcase a lot of guys. And today we got Mike LaTulip talking about the TBT. You mentioned a little bit about what I want to ask this next segment about, which is this year's roster.
Mhm.
Of course, we mentioned Mike Don being back. You mentioned Malcolm Hill. You now just recently mentioned Nana Egwu. Who else can we expect? Who else can the Illini Nation expect to see out there with you guys?
Yeah, so we have a few guys that have been announced so far. Andres Felice is back. Ravante Rice is joining us he committed last year. Obviously, had to go back to Israel, so he'll be with us this year. Really excited about that. Just his versatility, what he brings to the table.
Big shot.
Yeah, man, he can score it. He's really made strides facilitating as well since he's been overseas, and he defends his butt off too. So really excited to have Ray on board. Another guy that obviously Mike Dom, we touched on that. Another guy that we had that I'm also excited about. He's kind of more of the old head on the team, but Dimitri McCamey, who played for Carmen's crew last year, finally is making his way over
Home.
to,
There you
yeah,
go.
he's coming home. He's playing with us, and he's been fantastic. Ever since we started this team, or I guess really started preparing for 2021. I mean, Michi's just a guy that he wants to be involved, and that's not always the case. Like some teams, they'll go get guys and, hey, just tell me when the tournament is and I'll show up. Like Michi is involved. Like he wants to help. He wants to help recruit. He wants to help bring guys on board, make sure guys are doing well. And that's invaluable. I mean, for a summer tournament like this, to have guys that are bought in like that. So really excited to have Dimitri McCamey back, or I guess back in the tournament, but playing with us this time. And then Nana Egwu is another guy that'll be playing with us. Nana is just, I had 3 years with Nana, and I'm not sure I've ever had a better teammate. That's no slight against any other teammate I've had. Nana was just every single day, his work ethic, his approach, his attention to detail. But Nana, not once. I will say this, and Nana has not once ever said a word about himself, ever. That's just not who he is. Like he just, no matter what his successes, everything, playing with the Orlando Magic in summer league, playing preseason with the Orlando Magic, being on an NBA floor, having a successful overseas career, you won't hear a peep from him about himself. And I always tie it back to the type of guys that we want on this team. I mean, Nana Egwu is the poster child of the type of guy that you'd want, because it doesn't matter. Like he'll do anything you ask of him. Doesn't complain. You play him 5 minutes, you play him 25 minutes. He's the same Nana Egwu, and that's hard. That's hard for some guys at times. They have expectations, and Nana is just, hey, here's what I bring to the table, and I will give you that every single time that we take the floor. And so obviously thrilled to have him back. And I'm trying to think the other ones that we have on. LaRon Black is also joining us again this year. I do have, I guess, I mean, I could break some news here if you want.
I always like breaking news, baby.
So another guy that we will be adding this week, and I think we'll be announcing it on Friday of this week. Kipper Nichols will be joining us,
Nice.
which is great. I mean, Kip's another guy that's just super down to earth, fantastic, works hard, brings that energy. So he's another guy that we're really excited to bring on. And then a couple other big ones that I got to wait till some of these guys' seasons finish, and then we'll announce them. So, those are also some guys that we're excited about, and pieces that obviously make a lot of sense for our team. So yeah, and then just to play in Peoria, I think that's a big draw, and a big allure for these guys, to not only play close to home and not only play in front of the orange and blue again, but you're talking about family that haven't seen them play in God knows how long. And it's a short trip for them. So actually, I say short trip. Mike Dom's family is driving 12 hours from Kimball, Nebraska to come to Peoria. So whether you're in Chicago or Kimball, Nebraska or nearby, like, it'll just be really neat to see these guys play in front of some family again.
And you actually took my next question. Was well, we were going to discuss, because Peoria, and everybody understands when you're recruiting to the University of Illinois, Peoria is always a hotbed. Chicago is always a hotbed. So to be able to have all of these guys come back, these former players that people in Peoria and the surrounding areas cheered for over the 4 years that they played at Illinois, and of course the adopted Dominator, to be able to have his family come over. What is it to you? I mean, I know you say what it is to them. What does it feel like to you to be able to bring this product to Peoria, and what I think is a heck of a product with great players, great people, great personalities? Got a sign up here on my wall where Nana broke my record for block shots, but that's okay. I love them anyway. Records are made to be broken.
Right.
But you bring in all of these great personalities, great former Illini back, like you said, to Peoria, to Central America, to Central Illinois, to an area that is a hotbed for Illinois basketball. How does that feel to you to be able to give that to that area?
Well, I'll say this, Deon. It's a testament. I'll say it's two things. Number one, it's a testament to these players. And I said it at the onset of the show. There is no team without these guys. If we don't have these guys, we don't have a team. And so it's a testament to them, just them putting in the time to come and join us, to get behind this thing. But also it's a testament to the fans, to Illini Nation, because the draw for TBT to even put it in Peoria had a lot to do with the attention, the attraction, and the, I guess, engagement that Illinois fans had with our team last year. I think the TBT, quite frankly, was blown away by it. And really, if you're not, and they are East Coast guys. And then even if you go out West Coast, like, I don't know how many people understand how rabid this fan base is. Seriously, like, I think, obviously people think about Kentucky, they think about some of these other schools, and how incredible these fan bases are, and how involved they are, and how passionate they are. But you go look at what Illinois basketball has done historically. Illinois basketball is up there with a lot of these programs in the country, and they have the fan base to back it up too. It's super passionate, and we have last year, just when we started it, I didn't know going in, okay, I think they're going to get behind this. It's not necessarily Illinois basketball per se, but there are a lot of elements of Illinois basketball to it. But I was pretty blown away with their backing of us last year. And literally, in order for us to fund the team, there was a public GoFundMe that the fans helped fill. So forever indebted to them, and I'm personally, I'm forever indebted to these players that are taking their time to do that. So I'm there to help provide structure and make sure things go off without a hitch, and obviously put together pieces to this team, and strategize and game plan, and have all the schematic parts of it. But without the fan base and without the players, I'm not doing any of that, because there's no team. So those those two are just major parts. And I'll even say with the the Illinois basketball program, they were great backing us last year and kind of helping us market it a little bit. And obviously I've talked to people within the athletic department that kind of just spoke highly about our team and just the product that we put on display last year. Because the reality is, you're in late July, um, and anytime you can get people on ESPN talking Illinois basketball, like last year, they were talking about Io, they were talking about Kofi in the middle of our game, talking
Right.
about Brad Underwood, talking about how exciting this next season is going to be. Sure enough, it was. But really, as Illinois basketball is climbing back to the top, it's nice to have that national exposure just in the dog days of the summer of people talking about, probably this year they're going to be talking about Io going to the draft and Kofi going to the draft and what Curbelo is going to do next year. And all of that is just great for the university. So those are things that I'm super appreciative of.
Well, I know we only got a few minutes left, but I agree with you 100%. The ability for it to be in Peoria definitely sheds a light on it because it's bringing national attention to Peoria, and to the Illinois basketball program. Unfortunately, due to the NCAA rules, we're not the athletic department can't do as much
Right.
for you as they would like to, or as we would like to, or as I would like to, and that's unfortunate. But rules are rules, and the University of Illinois plays by the rules. So what can, and I'm going to give this few minutes to you, for those that are listening, how can they help the TVT? How can they be a part of what you and these guys are bringing to Peoria? So how does that look, outside of buying tickets and sitting in the stands and being able to cheer you guys on? Because I expect to be there. I'm looking for a lanyard, though, just to let you know ahead of time. I'm looking for
I
a
got you.
lanyard.
I got you.
No, but how can the people that are listening, the Illini Nation that's listening, be able to help out and find out more information on the House of Pain?
Yeah. So obviously, for one, you can follow us on Twitter if you have a Twitter account. It's at Illini TBT. A lot of the information that's being disseminated comes from that account. You can also go to thetournament.com. That's where you'll find all the rosters and also find tickets as well. They're selling kind of a festival pass, which is more of if you want to go for a weekend, it's a Saturday, Sunday, and you get 8 games, and then they're also selling an all sessions pass, which basically admits you to every single game that's played in the Peoria Regional. So yeah, I mean for me, I don't ask for much when it comes to fans having to bend over backwards to support us, but but just supporting us. I mean and I think it means a lot to these players. It means a lot to me for sure. That we have the support of the Illinois fan base, and those are certain ways that you can help out and that you can support. But we want to make this thing and continue to give this thing legs, and be something that Illinois fans can look forward to every summer. Before football season starts, obviously the basketball season's over. The signing period, all that stuff. Like this, it's a nice little change of pace in the middle of all that. So we're excited to see a lot of orange and blue out there in Peoria, July 24th to the 28th. Obviously a single elimination tournament, but we plan to be there playing from July 24th to the 28th. So yeah, I mean, those are I guess are ways that you can help, this team. And a lot of that, it's not necessarily tangible things outside of just being able to support it and say, hey, this is a team that I want to get behind, and we're going to do our best on our end, to put a product out there that Illini Nation could obviously be proud of, but with some nostalgia in there too, and seeing some of these players play together that didn't cross paths and didn't overlap in their Illinois careers. So that's the neat part of it. That's really the foundation of it, where we just want to make sure every single year that we put a product out there that these fans can really, really be proud of.
Well, Mike, first of all, for Illini Nation, I'm going to say thank you, brother. Thank you for educating me on the TBT. I didn't, of course, before we were in there, there was not really a reason for me to watch. But now that you put last year's team in there and you have this year's team, you can be for sure I'll be sitting and watching each game. I hope to be able to bring my family down and support you guys live. You and I talked earlier, well, before, about coming down and being able to talk to the players. I'm looking so forward to being able to do that,
Absolutely.
and being a part and helping out in any way that I can. So, Illini Nation, we're going to close this out again. We got Mike LaTulip, GM, Dobo, assistant coach, head coach of the House of Paign. Mike, thank you, brother. And I want to say again to my sponsors, Bet River Sportsbook, thank you very much for your support and your partnership. Could not do this without you. And Illini Nation, peace, love, and soul. And we out. Mike, thank you, brother.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Deon.